It's Monday night. Welcome to Monday Night Comics. Only on Comics with Dan.
Welcome to Monday Night Comics. Still getting the hang of things here. So welcome to Monday Night Comics. I am Dan, and this is Comics with Dan. So if this is your first time watching the channel, welcome. And for returning viewers, welcome to you. I recently had a change in my job where I don't get to do my comics commute anymore. Which was a weekly video where I would drive on my way to work and I would talk about comics. I'd talk about what I was reading, what I read last week and what I had upcoming this week, as well as anything else comic related that we were talking about. So I have been off of that for a couple of weeks because my new job is remote. So I decided to start a new live series where I talk about comics live on Monday nights. My thought process was you have, Monday Night Football, you have Monday Night Raw, you have all these things on Monday nights, but nothing for comics, right? So I thought that I would make a live comic show on Monday night. So the idea is going to be pretty similar to what I talked about on the comics commute. However, obviously it'll be live. I'll be sitting here, at my table. And it'll be about an hour long. I'll talk about what books I read in the past week. I will talk about the books that I have on my pull list coming up, as well as some insight into books that are going to be released this upcoming week that I've gotten an early look at. I also would like to eventually expand this to add a segment where I can talk about or talk to creators, even if I can just get them on for 15 minutes, just to promote upcoming books, that sort of thing. I think that would be a really cool addition. Again, kind of like I was also thinking like this is kind of like a late night show, but for comics, right? So getting the interviews in there is definitely an important part of that. So I think that without further ado, we are going to talk about some of the books that I read in the past week. And you guys are just going to have to kind of stay with me in terms of the production side of things, because I'm just getting used to kind of how all that works. So I will talk about what I read this past week, and I will be presenting and I actually just lost it, this is what I'm talking about with the production side of things. But you know what? It's a live show, so we can get a little crazy. We can not follow exactly the way that it's not scripted, and I think it makes it feel a little more natural rather than just me blabbering on and on about whatever it is that I'm going to blabber on about. So I am going to present here at some point, and we're going to see some stuff that I have coming up. Okay. So this is my list of comics that I'm going to be talking about tonight. And I thought it'd be nice I have this list of books that I'll be talking about, and the list I will then publish on League of Comic Geeks, so that anyone that wants to look at any of the books that I talk about will have more information there. And I also have the League of, I also have my spinner rack here with some of these books on. So you can see I've got my Justice League Unlimited here to discuss. So Justice League Unlimited #1. So I thought that this was, I mean, this was pretty highly anticipated. I mean, this is the same creative team for that was on Batman Superman World's Finest, which is a book that I've been pulling not quite since day one, but I think I started on issue 4, and it's at like 33 at this point. So, but the we have Mark Waid, Dan Mora, and Tamara Bonvillain. I've said before that Tamara Bonvillain, or rather Dan Mora's art, looks at its best when Tamara Bonvillain colors it. I think it's just perfect. I think that, and again, you know, Mark Waid and Dan Mora are a great combination. We've seen that in Batman Superman World's Finest. The premise here is kind of, the key is in the word unlimited, is that following the events of Absolute Power, the Justice League is now completely open to membership, right? So I have a feeling that the way that this book is going to work is that no two arcs are going to have the same cast of characters, which I think it really just opens it up for Mark Waid to kind of play with these characters how he sees fit. I think that, you know, he kind of does that in the first issue, right? There were some complaints that people didn't like about this particular book. The one complaint that I saw where someone said that it's modern Dan Mora, and they didn't mean that in a good way. I don't know what they mean by that. I think that Dan Mora has only really gotten better. But the nice thing about this book is that we are seeing some low, I don't want to say lower level, but some heroes that you don't usually get as much attention are getting some attention. So there's Airwave, Star Sapphire, right? They play huge roles in this book. Not to mention the fact that, and I'm not going to spoil it here, but the end of issue 1 ends, or the issue 1 ends on a cliffhanger, on a really exciting note. So I don't know. I mean, I loved it. I thought it was great. You can see on League of Comic Geeks, I gave it 4 stars. The art's gorgeous. I'm going to open it up to, I'll find just a great Dan. I mean, I could pick pretty much any page from this book and it would be phenomenal, because Dan Mora, all he does is produce unbelievable art. So I really could just put any page up, but let me find a good splash page here for you. But not a whole lot of splash pages in here now that I think about it. Either way, still lots of good art. Yeah, here we go. That's got some good stuff in it. So I'll present that there. So yeah, I mean, it's obviously beautiful art. That's never going to be the question. And Mark Waid's pretty much at the top of his game at this point. So I don't know. I really liked it. I thought it was great. I'm hoping that we don't let other characters sort of, slip under the radar just because we have such an open cast. But I mean, I think that I think it was awesome. I really enjoyed it. Make sure that you put in the comments whether or not you enjoyed it, or whether you picked it up or not. Just let me know, and we will get around to that. So the next one on my list is Nightwing. I am Nightwing 120. And this is the second issue in Dan Waters' run. So you see, I gave this 4.5, so even higher than Justice League Unlimited. This was so great. I mean, I was telling my wife the other day that this book has political elements in it, but um, it's not preachy and like heavy-handed, like uh, a certain prior Nightwing writer. But this was and to be fair, I did there was lots of Tom Taylor's run that I did like, but I just really liked how I really like how Dan Waters is pacing this so far. I mean, we're only 2 issues in, but he's cutting to the chase in terms of where the story's going, right? And so in the last issue, all the it's funny. So now that the preview is or now rather now that issue 119 is already out, I feel like I can kind of say a little bit about it. But um the first all the previews of the first issue were showing all these gangs, the leaders of these gangs too, right? And so um I even had spoken to Dan Waters about this and was talking about how like I don't recognize any of those people, like it's crazy, and they all die in the first issue. All the gang leaders do. So this deals with the aftermath of that. And so a big part of this is the militarization of police, um, which I think is definitely, I mean, I feel like anything with police can be a bit of a, sensitive subject, but I think that this is probably one that, if you really look into uh, what militarization of police actually is, you might be surprised at what your opinion ends up being on it. But I mean, you can see here that we have some of the police officers here are flying with jetpacks and laser guns. I think we can agree that police officers don't need jetpacks and laser guns, but either way, right? The whole idea here is that Dick Grayson is spending his time now putting making sure that this gang war doesn't start, right? So I'm going to try to set this up so you can see a little bit there. But he's trying to set up he's trying to make it so that a gang war doesn't start, right? And he's trying to work with the remaining gang members, because remember, all the gang bosses are gone, and this company comes in, and his sister, who's the mayor, is allowing them to provide these really over the top, unnecessary weapons to the police. It's not, again, regardless of your feelings on the topic in real life, you can look at this in the comic and say, yeah, that this is a bad situation that's going to only get worse. So again, we're not going to spoil this here. Really fantastic issue. It's still, the one thing I think that it does is I think it borrows from the tone of Chuck Dixon's Nightwing run, in terms of that it's darker, and that Bloodhaven is a corrupt city with a corrupt police force, which that was kind of the main point of Chuck Dixon's run, is how corrupt the police force was. But then also it does borrow the good elements from Tom Taylor's run, in that it shows Dick as a caring and compassionate, and not necessarily resorting to violence unless he needs to, right? And just the caring side of Dick Grayson, which I think is really important for the character. On top of that, what's really cool is that I think that this gang war side of things is going to be, I don't want to say short, but it's going to be resolved in fairly short order. But then there's this puppet master, puppeteer. I'm not quite sure what the character's name is. Excuse me. But there's this overarching story that you can see, right? And it's being done in a way that I think the biggest problem with Heartless before is that Heartless was introduced and was at the forefront of that first arc. And then he kind of disappeared for a while. Whereas this Puppet Master, I mean, Dick has no idea that he's there, right? So it's very well done, overarching story. And we don't feel that the Puppet Master is an immediate threat because Dick doesn't even know that he's there. So he doesn't feel that he's an immediate threat. So, but we know he's there, right? Meanwhile, in the last run, we saw Heartless. We knew Heartless was there, and Dick's running around going on pirate ships and all that stuff, right? So it's like, why is he not addressing the biggest problem? In this, he's addressing the biggest problem, but he doesn't even realize that there's a bigger problem coming. So I think that this was great. Honestly, now that I think about it, I gave it 4.5 stars. For the life of me, I couldn't tell you why I didn't give it 5. I might, you know what? We're going to do it right here live. I'm going to make it 5 stars because it was fantastic. So Nightwing 120. This is definitely my favorite all-in book so far. There's been some good all-in books, but this one easily the best one. And Dexter Soy, I mean, is just, I mean, he's incredible. I mean, I had never even heard of his work, but he does a really fantastic job here. So let me know in the comments if you've been reading Nightwing, if it's one of the all-in books that you picked up. It's definitely at the top of my list for the all-in books. So also realizing that I have now taken 17 minutes on 2 books, and we have quite a bit to get through here. So we might need to speed this up a little bit. Superman number 20. So Superman, to be honest, the main reason that I picked this up, or that I added this to my pull list, is because of Dan Mora. So I knew, and I mean, I'm a big Superman fan as well. And Josh Williamson has some strong work on Superman. But the thing about Josh Williamson's work, and what I've noticed particularly on Superman, is just that I don't know. I guess the best way to put it is that it's not incredibly risk taking. It's fun. It doesn't have a ton of depth to it, I guess is the best way to put it. It's fun. It's action filled. I don't know that I would say that there's a ton of depth though. The art in this book is absolutely gorgeous, which is no surprise. I mean, like, honestly, it's unbelievable. I mean, it for the life of me, I have no idea how Dan Mora can produce not only several books a month, but how he can produce at this level this many books. It is truly unbelievable artwork. That being said, right, just a few comments on this one is that I'm not the biggest fan of Lois having superpowers. I like how great Lois is without them. I don't think that she needs superpowers in order to be an interesting character. So I think that she could do without them, right? I do think that Williamson writes it really well. In the last issue, in issue 19, which was the first of the all-in run, there was a really great scene where Lois and Clark meet up in the same janitor closet to change into their Superman and Superwoman outfits, right? And so that was really cool. To me, one of the more iconic looks of the or panels of the last, several years is the two of them turning around and realizing that they're in the same closet, getting ready to go fight the baddies. Um, yeah, I mean, I just think that story wise, there's just a lot, and so you'll see, I gave this 3.5, and which is mostly carried by the art. Um, there's just a lot of it story wise that I'm not excited about. I'm not excited about Lois having powers. I'm not excited about Doomsday being back. Um, I think that every time a writer brings Doomsday back into the fold, it lessens Death of Superman, which is one of my favorite stories of all time. So um, I just he doesn't. I don't need Doomsday to have more lore behind him, other than that he just is hate in monster form, right? Um, I just think that Death of Superman is such a good story that I don't like it when Doomsday comes back. um, and this also has a time travel element to it, I believe, or is going to. I don't need that. It's confusing. It's to be honest, not all that inventive. Um, but that being said, you'll notice a lot of my issues with this issue are story related. It's not execution related. I think that Williamson executes all of what he's trying to do well. It's just that I'm not a fan of the decision making. Which, I mean, I think that it's just a sort of it's not for me thing. You know, I'm going to keep this on my pull list. I believe. I think that issue I believe that issue 21 is going to be the end of the arc. I'll have to double check on that. But I might trade weight it after that. So we'll see. But I mean, you can't go wrong with picking that art up. So I mean, if you at least want something nice to look at, you can look at that. So next is Void Rivals. Now, Void Rivals, think that I think that last issue was an end to the arc, right? So, um, generally speaking, and I'd have to go back and check on my ratings for the series. Generally speaking, the arc openers of Void Rivals, to my recollection, are not the strongest in terms of where the arc ends up. There's a lot of setup, right? And it can be difficult when you're rating individual issues, looking at it and saying, well, this I know this issue is set up, and I understand that, but how can I give an issue that's just setting things up for later as good of a rating as the end of an arc, or the middle of an arc that's just blowing me away, right? And so I don't hold it against it when it's I don't hold it against the arc whenever I look at that issue, right? I mean, it's set up. It is what it is. It's just not overly exciting, right? Furthermore, um, Void Rivals can be a little bit of a confusing book, just because I don't have a good memory in general, but um, it's hard to remember, who's from where, which characters on which side of this war. Um, there are some cool things that happened in this book. I mean, so first of all, Lorenzo Di Felici and Patricio De Pecci do just a really good job on the art, um, and then Russ Wooten on the letters. I love Russ Wooten's letters on this book. He has the different letters for Handroid. It's it's a it's a cool variety that he throws in there. Um, there is, I don't know if this is spoiling it or not. Let me check the solicit here and see if it's spoiling it. You know what? You can go ahead and cover your ears if you don't want this spoiled. So Derek meets Hot Rod, which this is now after. I mean, he met Jetfire way back in issue number 1, and then met Springer last arc. But now he's meeting Hot Rod. So we're getting more and more Transformers introduced into this. I'm really like, I don't know how they're going to do, because there's going to have to be a big crossover coming at some point here where these are all going to combine, especially Void Rivals and Transformers. I mean, there's no way that those two storylines aren't going to intersect at some point. I could see like G.I. Joe and Void Rivals not intersecting, but like G.I. Joe, from my understanding, the G.I. Joe line and the Transformers line are almost definitely going to cross paths, and Void Rivals and Transformers are going to cross paths. So we'll see how that goes. I really like Void Rivals in general. This is a setup issue. It's not overly strong. This is not a good issue to pick up if you're trying to get interested into the series. Definitely go back and read the other trades, especially this last arc, which was fantastic. But it was solid. It was good. I was happy with it. It's in no danger of falling off of my pull list in any way. So next we have Absolute Wonder Woman. So I'm a little torn on the way that Wonder Woman is. Let's see, I don't have a rating in here. Oh, I do. It's 4 stars. Okay. Gave this one 4 stars. I am a little torn on how this is going. It's done really well. I think that Kelly Thompson's a really good writer. But I guess what I'm a little conflicted on is, so essentially, like, Diana in this Absolute universe is from hell. And so in some ways, Kelly Thompson writes it in the mythological sense of, Hades. At least it seems that way. Or like the Greek mythology, rather, because I believe she mentions Hades. But as a Catholic, it's not the same thing, and obviously, I don't need it to be aligned with my beliefs on that because it's fiction, right? But I think what's a little confusing is that it's almost glorifying it a bit, to where it's seen as a good thing. And I know some people are into that. It's just that it's not something that I usually find myself into. So that's kind of my biggest issue with it. I think that Thompson's characterization of Diana is really well done. But there was, I think, and so like in this particular issue, there's discussion of people that have gone to hell, and whether or not the people that are there belong there, which you could probably have a whole real long live stream completely unrelated to comics to talk about that. But to put it simply, some of it seemed a little backwards there. But it's a well-written book. Hayden Sherman's art is good. I'm enjoying it. I would say that I like Absolute Batman a bit more, but Absolute Wonder Woman I like more than Absolute Superman so far. Now, there's only been one issue of Absolute Superman, but still, I think that it's a strong book. And if none of the things that bothered me about it are things that would bother you, then you'll probably like it a lot. So we are not going to talk about Death of Superman, although I can and I would, and maybe I will sometime. Maybe we'll just have a whole live stream about Death of Superman. Okay. Now, there's a few that I want to, there's one that I want to talk about that's not on my list. I just want to talk about it because I got a nice deal on it. I've got Firepower Volume 1, which is Robert Kirkman and Chris Samney, right? I'm really excited to read this. This is one of the books at the Image Volume 1s that was only $10 when it was released. And my local comic store had 50% off trades sale. So I got this brand new book for $5, which was really exciting. So not to go off on a tangent, but that's where we are. I only have one pull upcoming this week. I think Absolute Superman might be in my folder. I did take it off my list. I just don't know if I took it off in time for the cutoff to have them order it. So it might be sitting there. If it's in my folder, I'll probably buy it. But if he doesn't put it in my folder, then I only have the one. And it is the last issue of the Batman and Scooby-Doo Mysteries. It's issue 12. It's a little disappointing because if you've watched my channel in the past, you know that I've really loved this book. It was the first two runs of this were meant to be limited series, and they ended at 12, right? So not a big deal in that regard, but the problem here is that this was supposed to be an ongoing, and I guess it just got canceled. It wasn't selling, which is disappointing because it's one of like the only $2.99 books out there, which is rare these days. So I mean, it's just really quality, and my kids love it. It's not expensive. It's just well done. I mean, Joseph Torres is writing this one, which I believe he did some issues of Batman Night Watch, which was a good kids series. I really like the ones that Sholly Fish writes. Those ones are really phenomenal. But so, yeah, I mean, last one coming up. I actually don't think I got issue 11 yet. I'll need to see if I can get an order of that in. But yeah, my kids have been loving this one, I think. And so after this, the only kid book on my pull list is going to be Spider-Man Homeroom Heroes, which the nice thing about that one is that it's every other month. So I don't have to, shell out money for that every single month. But so I might need to replace this with another kids book. So I'll have to keep my eyes peeled for anything that's gonna be coming out for that. I know there's gonna be new Darkwing Duck, which my kids like the first Dynamite run of that. I'm not sure what else is gonna be going on. So let me know in the comments if you know of any kids comics that are gonna be coming out. So I'm going to stop sharing League of Comic Geeks because we are going to talk about that. But I am going to talk about. Let's do newsletter. Nah, that's not quite right. Do it this way. So here are a few books that I guess I can switch my banner to advanced reviews. So these are a few books that I am that I was able to get advanced copies of, or advanced PDFs rather. So I get advanced PDFs from Boom Studios, from Oni Press, as well as Mad Cave, Magma Comics, and there's a handful of others that I'm able to get them from. Sometimes it's hit or miss, but those are the ones that I'm like on the mailing list and get those pretty consistently. So this first one is called Long Cold Winter #1. So I'm going to read the solicit for this because it really had me drawn in, right? So in the not too distant future, the air on Earth has become unbreathable. However, a multinational company called Airco has constructed generators that provide oxygen for those who can afford it. Peace Dog, a desperate ex-soldier who has been willing to do anything to obtain breathable air, is haunted by his past and hunted by bounty hunters, though he may have found a way out of his current predicament by helping a mysterious robot child escape the dangerous and congested city. But someone from his past has no intention of letting him leave alive. So, sounds pretty exciting. Post-apocalyptic, essentially, not even post-apocalyptic, which I think makes it kind of a little scarier, is that it's, with all the environmental concerns going on in the real world, who knows if that's something that could actually happen, right? These are some preview pages from it. I want to start with the positives, right? The other thing that really drew me to this, in addition to the story, is the art style, at least on the cover, is very reminiscent of Daniel Warren Johnson or Jorge Corona, which those are Daniel Warren Johnson started the Transformers run, and Corona is on it now. Really fantastic art, just gorgeous, so dynamic, but still has that comic-y feeling, and that's what this looks like here, which is really cool. I will say, and perhaps it's not fair to hold it to the standard of Daniel Warren Johnson, but once you get into sort of what the art looks like, see here, it's standstill, right? So it's not action, right? And it looks great here, right? And it's exciting, and it looks like it's going to be great throughout. But this is where the preview pages end. When there's actual action, it's not nearly as dynamic as I would have hoped. I still think that I believe it's Let me see here. Stefano Cardacelli. I do think he's a very good artist. I think that something that I would like to see more in his art is more it to be more dynamic, for it to be it just the characters, when they're in motion, they seem stiff, which can be a little troublesome, especially whenever you really need that action to get the blood pumping in the book, right? So the other thing about the preview pages is that you look at the dialogue here, right? And so the writer of the series is Francesca Perillo, right? I don't know anything about Francesca. This is the only credit for them on League of Comic Geeks, but the dialogue or the narration here is good, right? And the dialogue is okay, but throughout the book, the dialogue becomes extremely clunky, extremely awkward. Um, Things are phrased in ways that um, just feel unnatural. Uh, it almost seems, and I don't know for sure if Francesca's first language is English or not, but it feels like it almost feels like it was translated from another language. Because I do like the story, and I can I can see where the writer's going with the dialogue, but there's just certain things about it that obviously they're not in the preview pages. There's certain things about it that are just a bit awkward. It was really tough to get through because of that. Um, it just and then I mean, I unfortunately I was a little disappointed with this one. I had really high hopes for it. Um, I will probably give issue number 2 a try because I don't think that these creators are bad. I think that maybe it's just that there could be some work done on the dialogue and, like I said, the action for the art. So that's what's going on with Long Cold Winter, number 1 from Mad Cave Studios. Now, next, I believe, no, it's also from Mad. Yes, Dick Tracy. So, I actually got these advanced review copies in my email today. So I kind of scrambled to read them ahead of the. I scrambled to read them ahead of the stream tonight, and Dick Tracy. When I read the first issue of Dick Tracy, it was fine, but it didn't it didn't wow me. It wasn't amazing. It was okay. But then I went back and read the trade came out recently, and I read through that whole first arc, issues 1 through 5, and it was extremely well done. Definitely should have. It goes to show you that you should definitely, even if you don't like one issue of a book, you should at least give it a second chance following up afterwards. Like I said, like I'm going to do with Long Cold Winter, I'm going to read number 2. Um, but Dick Tracy, the first arc ended really well, but this issue was crazy. It had such a great noir feel to it. The narration, I believe, let me make sure I get this correct here. I believe Alex Segura is writing on this. Now in League of Comic Geeks, it just says Michael Morecci. Michael Morecci is the writer, but I do believe that that Alex Segura is also writing for this, and it's such a great noir narration, and it's an exciting story. It's suspenseful. I mean, it's not often that a comic has me feeling anxious while I'm reading it, but this one did. There was a certain point where the killer that they're after kind of appears in the back of an alley out of nowhere, and I was just, my skin was crawling. I was excited. So also Geraldo Borges, who also did the art for one of my favorite series, maybe ever, No One, from Image Comics. Geraldo Borges, he did the art for that, and I really liked it. So the art's really good. There's some really cool decisions. It's just, yeah. So Dick Tracy number 6. You don't really need to know what happened in issue 1 through 5. There is some of that carryover, but I don't think that you really need issues 1 through 5 to enjoy this, right? So you could definitely pick this up, check it out, and if you like it, then go back and read the trade of the first volume. But yeah, so Dick Tracy number 6. I gave this one. Let me see. I thought. Yeah, see, I still don't have the. I don't know why the rating's not on here, but pretty sure I gave this 4.5 out of 5. It was really, really good. I thought it was awesome. Next. Oh, and so I still have. So here's some more preview pages here. You can see it gets kind of violent. I don't know anything about Dick Tracy. I know he's a detective and he wears yellow, but that's about the extent of it. So I don't know if they do rely on reveals that are based in nostalgia. I wouldn't even know it because like this character that they call him I think the Blank throughout. He's wearing all white. He has a white mask. I don't know if that's like a classic Dick Tracy villain. I don't know anything about him. But he's set up in this story so well that it doesn't really matter because it's so good. So let's get the next one here. Calavera PI. So I do have this on here, but I did not get a chance to read issue 2 of this yet. But I will say, which is probably good because I'm running a bit short on time here. But Calavera PI, it's about this undead detective. He comes back as a skeleton. This skeleton is walking around in a fedora, smoking a cigarette, which, I mean, we can all agree that that's pretty cool. But he has to come back and not only solve, I believe, a missing persons case, but also solve his own murder, which is pretty wild. It's all done by, I believe, Marcos Finnegan is his name, and he's a cartoonist. And I don't know. Lately, I have been really excited about the concept of creators working on Marco Finnegan working on both the writing and the art. I just feel like it just adds to it. Obviously, lots of great books have separate writers and artists, but just there's something cool about reading a work by one individual that was able to pull it all together. So I really liked issue number 1 of Calavera PI, and probably right after this, I will read issue number 2. Very, very good stuff. We are going to skip around a bit. And so I just want to make sure that I get to these tonight because I had some books sent to me that I'm particularly excited about. And then I might talk a little bit. I might talk a little bit about what else I have coming up or what else I read recently. So this first one is Seconds to Midnight, right? This is a horror webcomic, or the original work is a horror webcomic, right? Frederick Horning is a cartoonist from Germany, and I interviewed him on my channel and talked to him about Seconds to Midnight, as well as some of the other projects that he's worked on. I was first introduced to his work with, I believe, I don't recall what it was, issue. I think it was issue number 2 of Hello Darkness. which is the horror anthology from Boom Studios, which has also been pretty good. So check that out. But he wrote and illustrated a story called Stargazers. And so it was this like creature feature battle. It was a werewolf versus a vampire, and it was awesome looking. It looked so retro. And so you can see from this ash can, like that's the cover. Like that looks straight up like an EC Comics cover, right? You got the narrator on there. You've got the yellow lighting. I mean, even like up over here, you have it says nightmares, right? But over there, it could say, horror, suspense, whatever the particular EC book is. But then you have up here, instead of the EC logo, you have Frederick's logo, which is him. And so this thing is, he sent me this ash can, which thank you to Frederick for that. It's just, you can read it online. I'll post a link I'll post a link to, I guess I could put it on my link tree really, but yeah, I mean, just that gorgeous retro horror art. I mean, it's really just phenomenal. I mean, you can, and so like I said, you can read this online for free. It's really cool to have it in print. And that he, in my interview, mentioned that there's going to be a printing of Seconds to Midnight outside of the ash can, right? So it's really gorgeous, and thanks to Frederick for sending this over. It's really, really cool stuff. So that one is one that I wanted to highlight, but then also from Goats Flying Press, which is a newer comic publisher. There's this book called The Dead and the Damned. I just based on the name, right off the bat, it didn't seem like it was going to be for me. But it truly surprised me. It was extraordinarily well done. The concept for the story of where it's this undead king who has specific people he chose for his guard, his personal guard. They are essentially tethered to him, and they can't leave him, right? So they have to carry out his vengeance on the world, whether or not he's able to. Let's leave it at that. So Sebastian Griner, Sebastian Girner, I'm sorry, mispronounced that. Sebastian Girner sent me issues number 1 and 2 of this. Okay. And these on the Goats Flying Press website, issue number 1 can be purchased for $15. Okay. So as someone with a very small comic budget, I can understand how that is steep. However, you can tell looking at this that it's essentially, I mean, this is essentially a trade quality book. It's oversized. You can see how much bigger it is. I mean, it's bigger in comparison to, there's Absolute Wonder Woman, right? And so, and it's thicker, right? It's got a nice thick cover, but also something worth noting is that there is a digital version that you can buy for $4, right? On the Goats Flying Press website. So my recommendation would be that you buy the digital version, right? And you read that. And if you like it, and you're going to like it, then you go and splurge on the paper copy. I mean, it's really unbelievable art. The artist is Kelly Williams, right? And I mean, it's really just unbelievable art. is the first thing. And then the story at the beginning was slightly confusing, but then once I kind of got my head wrapped around it, I really liked it. Um, so this is definitely worth checking out. In addition to that, uh, Goats Flying Press also is doing the or did the Kickstarter for uh, the latest Junie Ba book called The Fables of Earl King Wood, which I was sent a review PDF of that, and I'm not all the way through it, but what I've read so far, which is about 2/3 of it, is really fantastic. I wanted to read, or I was interested in reading Boy Wonder by Junie Ba, but Damian Wayne's not my favorite character, so I didn't read that, but I did like how his art style looked. And so you get more of that art style here in the Fables of Earl King Wood. But it's truly it's just unbelievable. He and then the stories in those are great. They are like fables. I don't know that they aren't quite as clear on the moral of the story as some more traditional fables. But there's definitely, some lessons to be learned there. So, yeah, so that's also Goats Flying Press. The Kickstarter is going to essentially serve as, I believe it's over now. I believe it was over on Friday. But it can now the Kickstarter page now serves uh, as a pre-order portal, right? And then once the book's actually released sometime next year, then you'll be able to get it at Goats Flying Press, their website. But this is going to be a publisher. If you like indie comics, Goats Flying Press, this is going to be a publisher to look out for. What I really like is their little slogan is comics against all odds, which I think is a cool slogan because it just really says that they're going to try to put out comics. It's not it's not an easy industry to be in these days. It's Comics are expensive. They're expensive to make. It's expensive to pay artists and writers fairly. Um, but their slogan says that against all odds, so they're gonna make it happen. So I between this and the Fables of Earl King Wood, I mean, I think that this is going to be a really, an up and coming indie publisher. So we've got a few minutes left here. The only other things that I've read in the past week or so. Oh, one thing I did want to bring up, and I will share my screen real quick before we end, is that the Displaced, which is a series, if you follow the channel, I have talked about frequently. I love the cover that they did for this. This is so here's the thing. League of Comic Geeks has it solicited as volume 1, or has it listed as volume 1. In the information that I got about this, it does not say volume 1. It just says the Displaced softcover. It being called volume 1 here makes me think that there's going to be more. I hope that there's more, but I don't know that there will be. There's no confirmation, at least not to my knowledge. This is a story about the city of Oshawa, Ontario, and it disappears. And there is a group of it's like 8 to 10 people that survive this disappearing. And it basically deals with how people handle this, right? It's very character driven. It's really wonderful. It's to me, I mean, I wouldn't argue with it being the best series of 2024. Between that and No One, I mean, there's lots of good books out this year. The Pedestrian, The Displaced is really a contender for my favorite series of the year. So it's really so the volume one of the trade, or the volume one trade, comes out December 10th. So you'll want to make sure that you pick this up, because if you missed the single issues, you're definitely going to want to read this. It'll read well in trade for sure. I was so excited to get the issues that I had no problem remembering what happened in the last issue. I was always itching for more of this comic. So definitely a great book to pick up. December 10th that comes out. We're over time. But the only other items on my list, which I have here, I read Superman Action Comics Volume 2, To Hell and Back, which is the latest release in trades for Action Comics. And while it did have some strong points, it was essentially an anthology, which Action can serve as an anthology, but it just gets a little tricky when you have some kind of disjointed stories that you kind of have to cram into one volume, and it doesn't feel like it's very cohesive. Whereas if you have an anthology where the stories span several issues, you can put the whole story together in the anthology. Whereas here, it just felt a little disjointed. The very best part about this volume of Action Comics was actually the Action Comics 1 and 2 of the I'm drawing a blank here. The horror event for DC that came out. I'm dying here. Night Terrors. There we go. Night Terrors. Those were actually really good. The more Night Terrors books I read, the better they are. It was a good event that was placed very poorly. And then I also read Justice League Volume 1, the totality, and I love Scott Snyder. I think he's a really good writer. His Batman run is one of the best ever. But this was hard to get through. Just a ton of multiversal time travel, fake scientific jargon talk. It was a bit much. Jorge Jimenez, I believe, did the art, and he rocks. But it was tough. It was a tough volume to get through. I was not a huge fan of it. It's gonna be a little bit before I pursue volume 2 of that. With that being said, we are past time. Thank you so much for everyone who watched. If you're watching the replay of this, thank you for watching. Make sure you like the video. Hit the subscribe button if you're not already subscribed, because that helps me get these videos out to more people. And I will see you next Monday night.